But we've had a big clear out. And one of the advantages about New Year falling so fast after Christmas is that all this new stuff comes in at Christmas, and it's very important to make room for it. And what we find is that when we're starting to clear up the Christmas stuff, is it gets us into the mindset of thinking, well, let's have a bigger clear up. Let's start looking through other things that we can get rid of so that we can tidy up. Why do we need to tidy up? Because we want our house to be back to normal. And as we come into a new year, we want to create a workspace and a living space that can function properly, where we can move around, where we're not surrounded by clutter. And what the idea is that if there's anything in our house that we don't need, and that's just getting in the way, we should get rid of it. Now, the Apostle Peter, he writes to all Christians. He's not just writing to one church. And he reminds Christians that they've been chosen by God. But because of that, he says that they now are on this journey. They're on a journey to be with him forever. But it's not an individual journey. He says we're being gathered together to be built into a building, to become a structure in which God can dwell. But once we've been found by God, what God wants us to do is start getting rid of the stuff that's going to clutter our lives up. Now, here's our guy here. He clearly is struggling on this journey because he's being weighed down with some things. And Peter lists 5 things that make our journey really, really difficult. Things he says you need to get rid of. What's the first one? Well, the first one is this thing. It's a thing called malice. Now, what is malice? Well, malice is simply when we have evil thoughts to other people, when we have something in our mind that's not right, when we want to do bad. We can see the choice between the good thing and the bad thing, but we'd rather be mean. We don't want to be kind. We want to go to the dark side. And Peter's reminding us, look, Christians, he's saying, that's part of every single person, but it's something we need to fight against and something we need to get rid of. He says the second thing is deceit. And deceit, again, is when we want to do things sneakily, when we don't want to do it the right way, when we want to take shortcuts, when we want to go round the back. He says that's no good. If we're Christians, we need to be honest. We need to be open, not just with God, but with the people around us, because we're being built together. The third thing he says is this thing called hypocrisy. And hypocrisy is something that God hates. He says, I don't want you to pretend to be one thing on a Sunday morning, whilst the rest of your week you're completely different. He says, make sure that what you are on a Sunday is what you are everywhere else. Make sure what you are in public is what you are in private. He hated the Pharisees for their hypocrisy, for pretending to be something they weren't, pretending to be godly when they were far from it. The fourth thing he says we need to get rid of is slander. And slander, again, comes very easily to us. We like to gossip. We like to say mean things about people behind their back. But God would have us say to people the things we want to say to their faces. And something I was always told, that if you can't say to someone's face what you want to say, you shouldn't say it at all. Let's cut slander out of our lives too. And the last thing he says is this thing called envy. What is envy? Envy is wanting something that someone else has. Envy is not being satisfied with what God's given us, but instead we covet. We look at what everyone else has and it drives us. We allow it to take hold of us. And Peter is saying all of these things are common to every Christian. He's not writing to one church. He's writing to everyone. He's saying these things can creep up on us, and maybe at the beginning of a year, it's time to get rid of them all. And when we do get rid of them all, something wonderful happens. What happens? What happens is that the burden is gone, and hopefully the guy starts to stand up, and he can walk much better along this journey once this load has been taken from him. God is reminding us that these things come naturally to us. Let's make sure that we're always getting rid of these things, having that spiritual tidy up, just in the same way that we put the tree away, we put the cards away, we take the decorations down. Let's remember these things that God wants out of our lives, that we might be conformed to the likeness of Christ and make that journey better.